Hello everybody. In this video we're going to be looking at information from the Deviance unit. Now if you remember back to our culture chapter, we established the concept of cultural norms. These are the rules by which people are supposed to conduct themselves. Remember, we established that there were two different kinds of norms. There was folkway norms, rules about casual interaction, just holding out your hand to shake hands, waving back when somebody waves to you, folkway norms. And then there are mores. These are the norms that guide moral behavior, right? So not punching somebody in the face, not stealing something from somebody, not breaking rules that are associated with some kind of normality. Now, this has a lot to do with deviance because deviance is doing something different than what the norm is. So deviance doesn't always have to be something bad or rule breaking, although it often is. So like if I waved at you and you didn't wave back at me, even though you saw me wave to you, that would be deviant, right? Because the norm is that you would wave back if somebody waves at you. But you can be deviant without breaking any rules. For instance, if you went to your workplace and picked up your paycheck, cashed your paycheck, and then stood outside the nearest homeless shelter and handed your paycheck out in $5 bills to everybody that walked past, that would be deviant. Now, that's not against any rule, right? That's not even necessarily bad. It's just not the norm, right? People don't normally do that. The norm is when homeless people ask for money, that people tend to ignore them. So if you were going to make sure that you addressed every single one of them and then emptied your pockets out to them, that's deviancy. When you think back to what you guys learned about the civil rights movement, Rosa Parks not giving up her seat on the bus, that was being deviant. Right? So deviance doesn't have to be something bad. Deviance can be something positive. It can be something good. The thing that connects all of them is just doing something different than the norm. And what makes deviance especially interesting is that because there are no universal cultures, there is no universal norms. So there is nothing, no thought, no action, no matter how twisted or wrong or ugly or unacceptable we might think it is, there is no thought or action that is inherently deviant. Nothing. Because there's always instances in one human society or another where what we might think is extremely deviant and extremely wrong is entirely acceptable. For instance, in our society, if there is an adult having sex with a child, in our society, that is deviant. That is criminally deviant, right? We attach pretty strict penalties and pretty strong sanctions to a person, to an adult who does that. But it's not inherently deviant. There are human societies now, right now, where an adult having sex with a child is not seen as deviant at all. In fact, if you were the parent of said child, you might be pleased to find out that that was happening. So it's important to know that deviance is relative, right? It's relative to whatever the cultural norm is. And because cultures are so variable and norms are so variable, there's nothing that's universally deviant. There's no inherent deviancy in anything. It all happens in relation to whatever the norm is. All right? So let's look at some of the theories that we use to better understand deviance. And we'll start off with social conflict theory. If you remember, social conflict theory has to deal with inequality of wealth and income. So when we think about deviance, how does that apply to deviance, inequality of wealth and income? Well, social conflict theorists say that people who have wealth and power have a disproportionate influence over what gets identified as deviant and what gets called deviant. A good example is here what you look at in the slide right here. These are a couple of people who are playing craps on the sidewalk. Now, this is, in most places, deviant behavior. In many places, this is criminally deviant behavior, right? You can get in trouble for doing this. You can get fined, you can put in jail. And social conflict theorists would explain why. Why is this action deviant, but doing that exact same thing inside of a casino is not deviant? It's the exact same activity, right? You're gambling for money. You're rolling dice and exchanging hands. There's going to be a winner. There's going to be a loser. It's the exact same activity, but if it happens on the sidewalk, it's deviant and criminal. If it happens in a casino, it's okay, and there's commercials and billboards, and you're encouraged to do that kind of a thing. Why? Social conflict theorists would say because of the power differential. Because in the casino, there are wealthy people, the people who own that casino, who benefit from this activity. I'm sure you've heard the adage that goes, the house always wins. What that means is that if Bill Gates or Jeff Bezos sold all their stock and pulled up 100 semi-trucks full of cash to a casino, if they stayed there long enough, all of their money would be gone. All of it. Okay? The house always wins, right? No matter how much money you bring, the house always wins. There's a reason why casinos are big and fancy and glamorous, right? And it's not because they're giving tons of money away. It's because they're sucking tons of money in. So this activity, when it takes place on the sidewalk, there is no person who benefits from this other than whoever the winner is amongst these three. In the casino, the owner of the casino benefits. So how does that then make it deviant or not? Well, people who are in positions of power and authority, like these casino owners, petition the public and they petition our elected leaders to say that this kind of thing should be illegal. If you want people to do something like that, it has to happen inside of our casino. And we'll make sure that we take care of that. But you don't want this out in the street, right? It looks bad. These are criminals. This is not an okay thing to do. But if they come into the casino, they're tucked away in a place. We'll make sure that we pay our taxes and everybody's happy, right? And then this gets made into a law. Think of another example. If I walked into a bank and I told the person at the counter that I was all out of money and I'm really sorry, but I have to threaten you to get some money. I need $20 so I can get some gas, fill up my car to go back home. Give me the $20 or something bad might happen. And then the person behind the counter gives me the $20. Well, what's just happened is I have just robbed this bank. And before I can walk back to the gas station, I'm going to be intercepted by police officers and I'm going to be arrested and charged with robbing the bank. And I'm probably going to spend a good deal of time in jail or prison. Okay, the laws about that are very clear. The penalties about that are very severe, right? If I rob the bank, I'm going to get punished and punished harshly. What happens when the bank robs me? Or when the bank robs tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands or millions of people all at the same time? What happens then? Well, we have examples of that happening. In the 2008 financial crash, there were several large banks who robbed tens of thousands, millions of Americans. And not one of those banks or their CEOs or their members of their board of directors were punished at all. In fact, for the type of stealing that they were doing, there weren't laws for some of that kind of stuff. Now, the law is very clear about the kind of stealing that might happen against a bank, but the law is not clear or does not exist that the type of stealing that the bank itself might do. Okay? This is observations of social conflict theorists on deviance, that people in positions of power and people in positions of authority have a disproportionate influence over what gets identified as deviant and what gets identified as criminal. And a couple examples to help your understanding. And of course, there are many, many more that we could go into. Okay, let's look at one of the other theoretical perspectives for deviance. This is our structural functional theory. Okay, and if you remember functionalism, which is what we use as interchangeable with structural functional theory, is functionalism. Functionalism says that society operates like a machine, right, or like your body, with all the different parts working together in just the right way so that society functions, just like the different organs in your body work together in just the right way so that you're alive, right? So from a functionalist point of view, deviance is one of these parts of this machine. And so what is it for? What does it do? Well, according to a functionalist, deviance serves a very useful purpose in a society. Deviance is an effective and an efficient way to teach the members of the society what the norms are. It's much more efficient, according to functionalists, to point out when people are doing things incorrectly than to try to always be reinforcing when people do things correctly. Now, you might have seen this as you were going through K through 12 education. Maybe you even see it now. I know I saw it. When one of the kids in the school is getting picked on because they don't have the right kind of shoes, they don't have the right kind of clothes, or they're not wearing the right brand of this, or they, something about what they're doing is being perceived as bad or wrong. Right? They haven't done anything wrong. They just don't have the right brand of something, perhaps. Right? Haha, look at that person's shoes. Haha, look at that person's clothes. Right? And one or more people are making fun of this other person because of how they look, or because of how they dress, or because of the way that they talk, or whatever it is. Okay? What's happening here is that this person who is being perceived as being deviant by not wearing the Nike shoes, but instead wearing some off-brand of shoes, as this person is being made fun of, everybody else that's around that sees this is learning what not to do. Okay? So if you're among that group of people, and you're just an observer, and you see one or more groups of people making fun of a person because of the shoes that they have on, what does it tell you? Well, it tells you right away, man, I know for sure I'm never going to buy those kind of shoes because I don't want to be the target of that kind of ridicule from the people around, right? I know that I shouldn't do that. And I know I'm not going to cut my hair in that kind of style because that person gets made fun of all the time and I don't want to be subject to that. So while this one person is facing this ridicule and sanction from the people around, everybody else who's observing it is learning what the right things to do are, right? So this is how functionalism looks at deviance. It's useful. It's functional. It's an efficient way of teaching the members of a population what the norms are by pointing out when the norms are being violated, okay? Another theoretical perspective, and one that we haven't yet looked at before, is what's known as strain theory. Okay? Strain theory is a theory that we can use to make predictions about whether or not people are likely to be deviant or not. And strain theory rests on two central principles. The first is the conventional means, and the second one is the cultural goal. Okay? So, the cultural goal of our society, and most wealthy, developed nations, is the never-ending pursuit of financial rewards. This is the cultural goal. Okay? You learn this from a very young age, that happiness equals money, or vice versa. In all the commercials that you see, that nice car, well, that takes money to buy that car. That nice house, well, that takes a lot of money to buy that house. That beautiful spouse, well, that takes money to have a family like that, or to have a boyfriend or girlfriend like that, right? Because I have to dress this certain kind of way, and that costs money, and all these things cost money. So if I really want to be happy in my life, I need lots of money, okay? This is the message that we are taught from a very, very young age, and one that persists. You hear it today numerous times a day, anytime you're experiencing any kind of media, for sure. Right? Likely from other sources as well. So we're all taught that the thing that we should want, and the thing that we should pursue in life, is more and more and more money. And then we're taught that there is a way that we can get this money. And the way that we get that money, this is the conventional means, is to go to school, stay in school and get good grades, graduate, then go to college, stay in college and get good grades, graduate, then get a job, stay in the job, work really hard, try to get noticed, maybe kiss the boss's butt a little bit here and there so that you get promoted, and then you get promoted again, and then you get promoted again, and then you keep doing this cycle, and the big pot of money is there at the end. Okay? So the cultural goal is always, always, always more money, and then they lay out a path for you. If you walk this path, you will get that goal that we've taught you to want. Okay? Now, whether or not a person accepts or rejects one or both of these things is the subject of strain theory. So for a person who accepts both, this is a person that says, yeah, I want that big pot of money, and I think that I can get that big pot of money by doing what they have told me to do. Staying in school, graduating, going to college, stay in college, graduate, start a job, climb the ladder. I think that that's the right way to do it. That person would be called a conformist. Now, this is a lot of people. This is why almost everybody is in college right now. Sure, there are some people that are in college because they're interested in some kind of subject or they want to learn more about something else. But for the most part, people are in pursuit of higher education because they think it gives them a better chance once they want to enter the economy. And they're right. Okay? According to all the studies that show that. People with college degrees far out-earn people without them. Okay? There's those who accept the cultural goal. That big pot of money is important to me. Yes, I want that. But they reject the conventional means. Yes, I want that big pot of money. I want never-ending money coming in. But I don't think that the way to get it is by going to school, staying in school, going to college, starting a job, climbing the ladder. I don't think that's the right way. I think that there's another better way that there is to do that. We would call this person an innovator. And an example of an innovator would be somebody who drops out of school and starts a company, right? So we've got the Facebook guy as one that we would classify as an innovator. And for him, it worked pretty well. We would look at the founders of Apple, Steve Jobs. Again, drops out of college, starts a business, becomes enormously wealthy. So tech company founders are often innovators, as are drug dealers. Drug dealers are innovators, right? Most drug dealers sell drugs because of the money that selling drugs brings. And that can be a lot of money. And by doing this activity, instead of college, working the 9-to-5 job and climbing the ladder, they think that this is the better way to achieve the wealth that they want. Okay? If we have a person who rejects the cultural goal, right? That never-ending pursuit of money, more and more and more money, that's not really important to me. But accepts the conventional means, okay? Going to school, staying in school, going to college, that's the path that I'm going to take. We would call this person a ritualist. Many people who are teachers are ritualists. I would categorize myself as a ritualist. Sure, I like to have enough money to spend and to support myself, but I don't have ambitions one day of being the president of the college. I don't have ambitions one day of opening up my own college or starting a network of colleges. Right? I got the necessary training for what it is that I wanted to do, which was to teach sociology. And now I teach sociology. And I don't really have further ambitions outside of that with regards to my job. A person who is a long time, you hear stories about these people. They've been the librarian for like 50 or 60 years. They've been the janitor for 40, 50 years. They've been working at the restaurant at the cook for 20, 30 years. Right? These people are ritualists. Ritualists. So for them, that never-ending pursuit of more and more and more and more and more money is not is something that they reject, that cultural goal. Okay? But they're still participating in the conventional means. A retreatist is a person who rejects both of these things. So a person who rejects the cultural goal and rejects the cultural means, we would call this person a retreatist. Okay? So this person is not in pursuit of the never-ending stream of money, an ever-increasing stream of money, and is not participating in the go to school, work a job, stay in a job, either try to climb it or maintain your current position. This person rejects both of those things. And an important, an example of this would be somebody who is voluntarily, and this is an important distinction, voluntarily homeless or a vagrant, okay? Or a person who voluntarily chooses to live off the grid. Right, they go and they build a cabin out in the middle of Montana, and they got some chickens, and they dig a well, and that's where they chill. Okay, that person, we call them a retreatist. There are some people who start off as conformists and then later become retreatists. So it's not like a person has to live or exist in one of these categories for their entire existence. All right. The fifth category, and which is related to retreatism but importantly different, is what we call rebellion. A person who would be categorized under rebellion is a person who would not only reject the cultural goals and reject the conventional means, but would instead establish new goals and establish new means. Okay? So the retreatist just simply rejects the goals and means. A rebellion rejects the goals and means, but establishes alternative ones. Okay? So that the ever non-stop accumulation of ever-increasing wealth, that's not the goal. Instead, it is to perhaps become closer to God for a retreatist, for a rebel like that. Okay? And the way that you become closer to God is to constantly read your religious text, or to commune with nature, or to meditate, or to whatever it is that you believe brings you closer to God. Okay? So in strain theory, we look at the relationship between the cultural goal, again, the never-ending and expanding accumulation of more and more and more money, and the conventional means, the way by which that money is attained, which is defined by society. And it's go to school, go to college, start a job, stay in the job, climb the ladder, right? And then that brings you the money. Okay, this is strain theory. And then based on whether a person accepts or rejects one or both of those things, what would we call that person? A conformist, an innovator, a ritualist, a retreatist, or a rebel? Okay, so this video, we talked briefly about deviancy, what deviance is and what it is not. We looked at social conflict theory's relationship to deviance, functionalism's relationship to deviance, and introduced this new theory, which is Merton's strain theory, where we discuss cultural goals and conventional means. If you have any questions or comments or feedback, I'd appreciate you leave them in the section below. And I'll see you in the next video, where we're going to look at labeling theory, which is a really important part of the deviance unit.